it comes to divisive figures in the industry, you can generate both the adoration and the ire of CM Punk. An enigmatic entertainer both in his work and how he conducts himself elsewhere, his legacy outside of the ring is one of butting heads, legal battles, and, well, generating adoration and ire. Because I'm Cy for What Culture Wrestling, and these are 10 fascinating WWE backstage facts about CM Punk. Number 10, he got to keep his entrance music. It took him 5 years to get it in the WWE, but when CM Punk finally brought Cult of Personality from Ring of Honor to the market leader, he did so with the intention of never letting it go. This was confirmed on the Drinks with Johnny podcast by Living Colour's lead singer Corey Glover, who second-handedly told the story of a young Punkers Little League team using Cult of Personality as their entrance song from the dugout. According to Glover, Punk was stubborn about keeping a hold of the track rather than, assumedly, having someone make a sound alike. Obviously, for a time, the Second City Saviour did use a Killswitch Engage song originally licensed for Randy Orton, and you should let us know which you prefer as Punk's theme down in the comments below, because I know a lot of people go to bat for this Fire Burns, but apparently Punk was one of the few superstars that got it in writing in his contract that where he goes, Cult of Personality goes with him. Which is a good thing too, as we really don't need a Def Rebel knockoff version. Number 9, beef with Booker T. Booker T's rather recent story about him and CM Punk having a few stern words at an NXT taping were debunked by the Hall of Famer on his own podcast, though it's worth noting he used the same platform to stoke the fires in the first place. He explained that he was mostly just working, noting that it was just for entertainment's sake and asking people not to take it seriously because, in his words, we won't be having a fight. And while that's all good and might be the end of the tale, it's not necessarily the beginning. Punk and Booker have had previous for this sort of thing. Cody Rhodes famously relayed an occasion where Punk asked wrestlers to pick up their trash from his perspective of the so-called locker room leader, leading Booker T to throw his garbage on the floor in protest. You got to wonder if CM Punk responded with, "Now can you pick that up, sucker?" Probably not. Number 8, Shawn Michaels stood up for him. CM Punk and Shawn Michaels looked every bit like old mates reuniting when the Punker made a surprise appearance at NXT Deadline in December 2023, which was all the more surprising considering Punk's open adoration for Shawn's greatest rival in and out of the ring, Bret Hart. Though his bond with HBK might not date back as far as his childhood fandom, Michaels was vital in helping Punk over some early WWE hurdles. Former writer Dave Lagana told the story, noting that he was often in creative meetings where Punk was buried by everybody with stroke other than the Heartbreak Kid himself. Speaking on his I Want Wrestling podcast in 2011 of an event that occurred during 2006 to 2007, he told the story of a creative meeting that turned into one of apparently several CM Punk so-called bash fests. However, Michaels spoke up to interject and politely pointed out, if you don't like something the kid is doing, why don't you work with him to fix it instead of killing him? By this time, Michaels had obviously seen something in Punk he deemed worthy of following up on. Years later, he was on the other side of the aisle. Number 7, before DX loved him, they hated him. With Shawn Michaels as the man that forced management to lean in on what CM Punk offered rather than shooting on him for what he didn't, and Triple H being the one to bring him back to WWE long after Vince McMahon had allegedly placed a blanket ban on it ever occurring, it may appear as though the DX originals were always big into the straight edge superstar. This was most definitely not the case. Ex-WWE writer Court Bauer spoke candidly about what he experienced backstage during Punk's 2005 tryout, noting that Triple H along with HBK buried CM Punk. They annihilated his look and his work. They were shredding this poor guy. Bauer added that it wasn't just Vince McMahon but also then head of talent relations John Laurinaitis in the room, ensuring that anybody with power thought the absolute least of the future WWE champion. But within 12 months, both Shawn and Hunter were stood in the ring with the ECW newcomer getting nowhere near his reactions at the 2006 Survivor Series. Number 6, he almost returned to WWE before debuting in AEW. CM Punk's March 2024 interview with Ariel Helwani is must-see stuff. Your mileage on everything he says may vary based on what you think about Punk himself, but he's at very least committed to his own version of the truth at all times, including revealing a fascinating nugget about how his recent history could have all been very different. it. Noting that his 2023 return had a lot to do with an existing relationship with Nick Khan, he explained that the two had discussed Punk returning to the market leader in that year, or at the very least when audiences returned in 2021. The timelines are odd, but certainly not implausible. Punk was adamant that he worked for Fox rather than WWE during his 2019 to 2020 spell as a host on Backstage, and always tried to speak truthfully about what he liked, not much, and what he didn't, a lot, during his time as an analyst. When he did return, it was to AEW, and with more than a little venom directed towards WWE and Vince McMahon. This raises questions, but all of them can be answered with the simple reminder that he's in wrestling to make money more so than he is friends. Actually, speaking of which, number 5, his time got cut on his first night back. Though a long way away from his best work in this WWE run, let alone his prior one, CM Punk's promo on his first night back at Monday Night Raw was perhaps his most anticipated. "Hell froze over" was the caption attached to the picture of him posing with Triple H backstage at the Survivor Series event 2 days earlier. Such was the implausibility of his return for so long. The speculation had been present from the moment he was released by AEW, dating right up to the day before when a new version of Cult of Personality by Living Colour dropped on Spotify, but wrestling being wrestling and Punk being Punk, it simply wasn't real until it happened. On the night itself, Pipe Bomb was only really half right. Unique for how inconsequential it was, save for the closing segments where Punk stared down the lens and said, off mic, that he was back to make money rather than friends. As it transpired, time that night wasn't on his side. In what might have felt like a chilling callback to a different period, Punk was told his time was cut due to other things running over on the show. He had to shorten much of the homecoming sentiment, which itself was almost too bizarre to take seriously so soon after his shocking return. Number 4, he upset The Undertaker. But I mean, who didn't? The self-appointed judge of Wrestlers Court stewarded the locker room with an iron fist and thus was no stranger to having his ire raised. CM Punk sadly fell afoul of this in 2009 though, aiding the ruination of his amazing heel turn on Jeff Hardy and World Heavyweight title success that summer. This particular bone picked by the dead man was in how Punk was dressed back then. Bought in casual attire rather than adhering to the dress code, the new champion allegedly told Taker that he should be free to wear what he wants in the same way that John Cena did. Undertaker disagreed and was offended by Punk's comparison and for simply not doing what he was told. This manifested on screen in the form of their middling program Over the Belt that Punk felt he was doing just fine representing in jeans and a t-shirt. Undertaker beat him handily at Hell in the Cell, setting in motion a period of 2 years before the straight-edge superstar was near a top title again. Number 3, he was supposed to win the 2008 Royal Rumble match. Per the man himself, 2008's Royal Rumble was supposed to be his, though the apparent change of plans might be one worth digging a little deeper into. This revelation emerged during a conversation about the match between Punk and WWE Backstage's Renee Young in early 2020. While promoting that year's upcoming Rumble coverage, Punk chipped in to say, I was supposed to win Royal Rumble, but John Cena comes back after 3 months from a torn pec. Thanks a lot, John. The second part is of course accurate. John Cena's shock Madison Square Garden return from the pectoral injury remains one of the pay-per-view's finest moments and indeed one of WWE's best ever surprise returns. The rest feels like a bit of a stretch. Cena ended up in the final 3 alongside Batista and Triple H, with the straight-edge superstar eating an elimination 17 spots from the end. It could have been a throwaway joke, a case of notoriously bad wrestler memory, or Punk getting elements of his own history mixed up, or maybe it was true. Though Cena and ultimately Triple H as well both went to WrestleMania to fight Randy Orton for the richest prize, Punk got his golden opportunity on that show too. He won Money in the Bank there, cashing in on Edge months later to score his first top title in the company. Whether the Rumble was to set the wheels in motion for his big night or not, the company did at least see gold in his near future. Number 2, Conan revealed Punk's relationship with AJ Lee. CM Punk and AJ Lee's worked romance became a shoot at some point during their time together in WWE, but the news breaking to the rest of the world came via the least likely of sources. Speaking on his MLW radio podcast at the time, Conan revealed that, having been backstage at WWE weeks prior, that he'd seen the two of them together. The quote was, I would also like to say that I found out AJ Lee is dating CM Punk. I don't know if that's public knowledge, before it turned out to not be as well known that maybe he assumed. He went on to say that he'd heard others weren't particularly complimentary of the straight-edge superstar, hearing that some had said he had a huge head. He chastised Punk for hating Cena for his ego and then developing one himself, and pointed out that his source in WWE had described the Punker with the word conceited. Well, compared to what others have said about him since, this now feels relatively quaint. And number 1, he tried to ban his mother from attending WWE shows. There have been plenty of stories of CM Punk separating himself from those in his life he no longer wishes to be around, and just as many about the difficult upbringing he sought to escape via pro wrestling when he was growing up. The two coalesced in 2013 when TMZ reported he'd obtained a restraining order against his mother and was working to have her banned from ever attending WWE shows to further maintain that divide. The report noted at the time that Punk filed the order following claims of, quote, repeated financial demands and years of abuse, harassing and threatening behaviour, adding that he claimed to have given his mother more than $100,000 but eventually cut her off. He also shared the content of one from a string of harsh emails, including one that read, "You don't give a bleep about us, you just care about your money and your money-hungry / fame-hungry friends. You would sell us for a nickel." It's unknown, or at very least has gone largely unreported since the original filings, if any of the legal documents and measures still remain in place.